Tell you something, they ain't giving me a Woody.
Ageist.
Oh, sorry, she didn't give you a Woody.
This is a
60
very
years
forgettable
old.
movie.
What 60-year-old woman is getting you a Woody?
Public access, the final frontier. These are the adventures of the CineFiles, whose 5-year mission is to explore strange and unusual movies, to boldly watch and review what no one has watched before.
Hi, we're back yet again, and this time we're continuing our talk from last week, which was Star Trek, the Star Trek series. We discussed Star Trek 4,
Star Trek
4, The Voyage Home, which we all liked, but we'll continue on today with Part 5. Before I do, let me introduce my co-host to my left, Mr. Eric Cohen.
I like that new voice, by the way, you're using.
Yes.
So low and sexy. Gravelly.
Yeah, and to his left.
matches the mustache.
I guess it's going up against Ricardo Montalban's voice.
Well, next we got up Mr. Michael Phelps.
Edwin's going for his 70s bad cop persona.
Or this is a jazz show.
Can we just give it up to Edwin's mustache? I mean, look at that mustache.
Should I keep it or should I shave it?
That mustache.
Keep it.
My wife hates it, so there you go.
That's
That
not
was
his
God!
wife.
Okay, I'm not shaving it. Unless I get some response from you guys. Anyway.
The Rob Reiner look is good on you.
Okay, it's going
Ooh,
tomorrow.
that's-
Fuck you! I am not Rob Reiner. That fat bastard. Anyway, let's continue from last week, guys. I love that show. We liked Voyage Home, right? I thought it was a good movie. Now the next one is The Final Frontier. William Shatner actually got kind of jealous that Leonard Nimoy was able to direct too, so he came back and said, I want to direct the next one and co-write it, just like Leonard Nimoy did. And
That explains a lot.
let's just say that Leonard Nimoy was a very good director, and Shatner, ooh boy, this is definitely the worst entry in this series. It's amazing that this film wasn't called The Final Entry instead of The Final Frontier. And actually it almost was because of the low box office totals in this one. This one is absolutely a mess from beginning to end. To be fair, Shatner did have some problems with special effects houses. In fact, during the summer of '89, as you know, there was Ghostbusters 2, there was Indiana Jones. ILM was busy, so he had to get some third-rate special effects house. And, oh boy, it's obvious in some of the special effects in this movie. This movie stinks.
Well, it took a while for this movie to get started because I think like the first 10, 15 minutes is Kirk, Spock, and McCoy just camping and talking to each other, and it was like, okay,
Mountain climbing, the whole.
exactly. And I felt since William Shatner co-wrote it and directed it, I also thought it was another chance for him to make himself look so manly. Like, look, I'm mountain climbing with no ropes. But then, the film finally gets started, and it suffers again from there not really being a memorable villain. Because this one is like
Another energy being.
Exactly. It's like Spock's half-brother hijacks the Enterprise. And it's just like, okay, that's not interesting. But then slowly, he starts turning the crew into his way of thinking. And then they're on this journey to find, like, what they believe is God.
Right.
And then when they get there, big shock, it's not. And then Kirk, of course, is the first one who notices this and wonders, what does God need with a
Starship.
A starship?
That's my favorite quote of the whole film. What does God need with a starship?
See, again, the
That's actually
speech inflections.
pretty good.
That's the only reason I find Shatner interesting.
The problem with this film, too, is that the humor. You're talking about how the humor, they wanted to amp up the humor because of the success of the previous entry. They make the cast look like complete idiots. There's a scene where James Doohan, is in every trailer. I know this ship like the back of me head. And he hits his head and falls over. And there's a scene where Uhura tries to, seduce the crew, and this woman is really looking like shit. She's like,
doing a fan
Okay,
dance.
she looks older. She didn't look like shit.
I'm tell you, I'm not. I tell you something. They ain't giving me a Woody.
Ageist.
Oh, sorry, she didn't give you a Woody.
This is a
60
very
years
forgettable
old.
What
movie.
60-year-old
It's-
woman is getting you a Woody? That's
No,
my question.
why was she even stripped to lure these people
But she
out?
wasn't stripping. She was doing a fan dance.
She's doing a fan dance, but it's a very forgettable movie. It tries really hard to be thought-provoking,
It's not thought-provoking.
It's a shame.
even though the plot is somewhat similar to the first film,
It is very similar. And the fourth film, it's similar to that too.
and a resolution sort of similar to the first, not in the sense that some creature, they meet, but it's like the mystery.
There's no
It's-
actual
Well,
person as the actor.
they basically kill God with the phaser, all phasers.
Right.
It's a terrible
all phasers
movie.
trained on him.
So the next one.
And one more thing I have to comment on this. The thing that really just irks me is there's actually a fart joke in a Star Trek movie. I mean, come on, it's terrible. But anyway, this one bombed big time, and actually, from what I understood, the actual series when I read was actually basically canceled. It was only because it was the 30th anniversary or the 25th anniversary of the original Star Trek that the next one came to be. So they decided to go back to the strongest person in the series for directing, and that was Nicholas Meyer. And they got together with Leonard Nimoy, and they collaborated on a script. And actually, it uses the original subtitle of what Nicholas Meyer wanted to use for Wrath of Khan, which is The Undiscovered Country.
And do you know where that phrase comes from?
Hamlet, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly, Hamlet. From the To Be or Not to Be speech.
There
you go. The Undiscovered country, which would be Afterlife.
You get a little literature lesson.
Even though I'm not quite sure how that plays.
With that would play more in with the Final Frontier than it would Undiscovered Country, because but in the movie, isn't the Undiscovered Country diplomacy? That's what they.
I think it was.
Isn't that how they alluded to?
Yeah, because here's what happened. There's a mining accident on the planet. Klingon, and the Klingons have to join the Federation to help them find a new world. And of course, there's some kind of conspiracy mission against the Klingons because they don't want peace. It's very, very symbolic of the U.S. relations at the time. Actually, when the movie came out, it was the actual time that the coup happened in Russia where the wall fell.
Right.
The wall would be in
not
East
the wall,
Germany,
but I'm saying the actual Kremlin. Basically, Russia was
Glasnost.
No more. USSR was no longer. It came at the same month, which was like ironic timing. And this was the final entry, and the cast really looks old in this one.
Can I like to say that this is like the Octopussy of the Star Trek.
Octopussy.
What I mean is like Octopussy in itself is a fairly entertaining Bond film.
Right.
However, in it they've got a way too old actor playing Bond.
Oh, I can agree.
And Undiscovered Country, actually, it really lightens up after Travesty it was before it, and it's got some really fun, pulpy ideas going on in it. Even has this interesting thing where it deals with like the dark side of Kirk and that he is a racist when it comes to certain things, and it's an interesting challenge they give that character.
He hates the Klingons because they killed his son.
They are too old. They're too old. The whole thing where he leaps to save the Klingon ambassador from assassination. I'm sitting here wincing in pain. I'm like, oh my God, Bill, you're gonna like put out a hip or something. Don't do that.
The ending kind of plays like conspiracy thriller at the end. But the thing I guess I enjoyed at least about this film was I just like Christopher Plummer playing like the main badass villain with an eye patch.
That's where Undiscovered Country comes in because he loves quoting Shakespeare.
Well, I just thought it was humorous, especially because if you listen to the way Christopher Plummer speaks naturally, he kind of has a very light voice, and he's playing this heavy Klingon character, which I thought was, at least to me, hilarious, even though he puts in a good performance because he's a great actor. But also, I like the fact that they had Michael Dorn play a Klingon who was not Worf, who I guess was one of his ancestors.
Right.
And I just, as a Next Generation fan, that was interesting to me because I just only recently saw this film because after, the film previously, Part 5, I stopped watching pretty much any of the old crew Star Trek films.
It was an annoying Christian Slater cameo.
Yes, which to me was really unexplained why he was even in there.
Just because he was a fan.
He was a fan.
He wanted to be in the last one.
I think his mother was a casting, and she got him in there.
That was just like out of nowhere.
I think the movie is not bad. It's trying to be like Star Trek meets the Parallax View or something. It's very conspiracy oriented.
The ending.
There's a nifty space. There's a nifty murder scene in space with the blood. Zero gravity. Also look for Kim Cattrall as an early, cool. And then
who was in a previous film.
She was supposed to be originally supposed to be the Savick character who was in the other contract, but they didn't want to make her a villain, so they cast a new Klingon. A Vulcan instead.
And that was a nice little twist, and it was a nice little dynamic between Spock and her. How they're, I think it's a strong entry in the series. It's just the cast is too old.
It is. They are too old. I mean, especially the scenes where they're on the prison planet, where you see Kirk.
I think I might agree with that. It's not to me one of my favorite ones. I still think the villains are a little bit weak, but
well, I will say this: compared to the next entry, they look like teenagers, and that is the film. This is actually, as I said, this is the film that basically hands off. The old crew gives the next generation the torch over, and that film is Generations, which was actually in development a long time. They could not get back the entire crew for obvious reasons. They said McCoy,
Well, James
DeForest
Doohan
Kelly.
was sick.
DeForest Kelly
DeForest Kelly was sick.
They couldn't get insurance for him. Also, Leonard Nimoy didn't want to do it, and so they only got they did get James Doohan. They got James Doohan, and they got Chekhov, and I think they did get Sulu as well. They did not get Sulu.
It should be explained though that this was a direct. This ties into the TV series, and that there was an episode where James Doohan, whatever accident happened, they did find James Doohan during the TV series Next Generation, and they dealt with that prior to that film. And also there was this famous 2-part episode where Spock. It was called Spock, and Spock, Leonard Nimoy played himself, and it was actually very good 2-parter.
And also, DeForest Kelly actually makes a cameo in one of the episodes. It's 170-year-old doctor.
Actually, the pilot episode.
That was it. Encounter at Farpoint.
So they got Shatner to come back.
And this one is a really terrible entry. It's not a very good way to start off the series.
I will give it credit, though. Good villain. I thought Malcolm McDowell was a very good villain.
You couldn't ask
because he was somewhat sympathetic.
But it was such a weak excuse to bring Shatner back. I mean, the whole explanation for bringing Kirk into this universe,
it's a parallel universe where Kirk is somehow in this parallel universe.
It's not even a parallel. He's like stuck in this kind of vortex.
The Nexus.
Nothing really changes, right? And it was such a letdown.
And he looks
terrible. It was a crappy swan song for him too.
Exactly, and the action sequences, especially towards the end, towards the finale, it's just ridiculous because you have 3 older gentlemen, running around fighting each other, and it's just not very exciting. It's just like as Edwin was saying with the last film, you're wondering which one's going to break a hip first or fall down because their knee fell out. So,
well, what's funny is Kirk still kicks some ass at the end. As bad as
because he's Kirk.
He does the flying kick. Well, he does the flying kick.
They actually said he said there was a scene. They said there was a scene where he thought his ass was too big, so they had him airbrush it because he's really out of shape. And Kirk looks terrible in this film. They should have had him in it for 10 seconds and they get killed. He shouldn't have to carry the entire movie. He's basically trying to be heroic, and they try to give him heroic death.
It's funny, he looks a lot better in the Priceline commercials now than he did.
I got to agree with you on that. He had some good
maybe better living these days.
Okay, what's the next one?
Well, the next one is, I think, one of the best entries actually in the entire Star Trek canon.
I will agree with you
I was very surprised because I didn't have high expectations for it, but the next film is First Contact, which actually takes the most memorable villain from the Next Generation series, which is the Borg, which is not a Swedish person, but a hybrid alien robot creature from outer space, whose infamous tagline is "Resistance is futile." I really like this entry. It was directed by Jonathan Frakes, who was number 1.
Riker.
Make it so number 1.
Well, I think also, as we've discussed previously, I think it's because it has such a powerful villain and memorable villain that it's interesting.
Alice Krige.
Exactly.
Alice Krige as the Borg Queen.
She's incredible.
But also you have supporting players who are not part of the crew who are also good in the film, too. You have Alfred Woodard in the film.
Neil McDonough, I think, too, right?
I was thinking James Cromwell.
James Cromwell is the guy that starts the hyperdrive, I think.
Exactly, and he's learning about his future, which he's not even prepared for at that point, but because at that point he's, an alcoholic and kind of a slacker, but learning that he's going to go on to do great things. And I liked how they dealt with that drama, not too much, but at least you got a little taste of it. And again, since I'm a fan of that series, The Next Generation, bringing back another memorable villain from the series for him to face, and one that almost destroyed him in the first place. So he really has a hate for these characters, and them trying to actually assimilate one of their own crew.
I like how dark it is, too, and I love how you see the scenes with Picard having the flashbacks of when he was imprisoned by the Borg. It's very creepy, very well directed.
Exactly, and it actually gives each of the cast a scene to shine on their own instead of just having them strictly play in the background.
Even a character from Deep Space Nine makes a cameo. The hologram.
They take lots of elements from the other series. The time travel, where they go back in time to the 23rd century, which is the Kirk years, but he's not in it, thank God.
The holodeck.
And they also take the character who was in the original Star Trek episodes. I forgot what it was. He's in Metamorphosis. He is the James Cromwell character who invented the warp drive, which actually made the Federation basically discover.
I wish I could remember what his name is.
I can't remember it either.
I don't know.
Great character.
Oh yeah, it's like an iconic. It's part of the whole.
But it's a great episode.
Star Trek. lore.
It is really creepy. I love every moment of this one. This is actually, I think, one of the best entries in the entire. I was very surprised. It's the only good one in the new
Yeah, but see, the problem is, but when we go to the next film, it's directed by the same person
and he
who had
miserably.
such great strides with this one. But then the next film comes along, and it's all that is reversed.
Is his fault or the writers for coming up with a real shitty story?
It's both.
It's not really even that visually arresting either.
It's very boring to look at. In fact, let's get into the next one. First Contact. I mean, how would you think of it, Mike? I really liked it. I thought it's definitely one of the best. I love the visual look.
I liked it a lot.
Good performance, and the thing too is, we have to give credit. Patrick Stewart is an incredible actor. He really
and it was very well received by critics. Too.
Yes, it was, and it's one.
I'm going to find out what the name of the character was.
In Star Trek: The Next Generation and in other work, Patrick Stewart's always usually.
Well, actually, the next
good.
after this,
make it so number one.
Go number one. Go take a number two. Butthead?
We gotta go on.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go on to the
All right, well, after the First Contact, I had high hopes for the next film in the series, which was entitled Insurrection, but I saw the previews. I wasn't too enthusiastic, but I said, you know what? I love First Contact. It's Jonathan Frakes again, who did a great job. I'm going to see it.
Boring.
Boring as shit. It is almost as boring as The Final Frontier.
Well, it's pretty much just them discovering a planet that's supposed to be the Fountain of Youth or Garden of Eden. And
you had some really ugly villains, including F. Murray Abraham, who really actually didn't need.
It looked like they just put some latex on him and did it with
he was a plastic surgeon on the
gentleman. Zephyr Cochrane.
That's
right.
But no, I really didn't like anything about it. In fact, I have really nothing to say about it, except it was completely boring. It's competently made, but it's just boring.
Well, isn't that the one where they destroyed that Enterprise? Or no, or was that Nemesis?
I forgot.
That's how bad the film's.
I really didn't like it. I have nothing to say. What about you, Eric? Do you have anything to say about it?
I haven't seen it.
You haven't? Well, you're not.
Well, yeah, exactly. I watched it only for the show, and I was just bored to tears watching the whole.
I just think it's funny that the big twist in it is that the villains are actually from the planet of Paradise or Fountain of Youth or whatever. And it's like, those are our children out there, and it's like, all right, whatever, go on.
Piece of shit. I gotta say. Well. After this one,
the next one's not that much better.
Exactly. They didn't redeem themselves.
I didn't realize there was another one.
I will disagree.
Nemesis.
I will disagree.
Oh, Nemesis. I remember the name.
It took another 4 years because of the failure of the returns on Insurrection, and the next film would be Star Trek Nemesis, which actually, I believe, was directed by a very, very talented editor by the name of Stuart Baird, who actually did, I think, one of the best films of the 90s in terms of action, which is Executive Decision, which is a terrific, wonderful suspense
It's all right.
film. I love every moment of it.
It's pretty good.
I think Executive Action is better than Executive Decision, but that's just me.
Executive Decision all the way. But this one had a very problematic run.
Dude, we don't have to spend that much time.
It was actually when they premiered it. It was actually 40 minutes longer. They cut it.
Well,
it has to do with
the Romulans.
It's so far the last entry with the original, the Next Generation. In fact, the final one as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, the opening scene is great, but after that, the movie completely falters, and it breaks that code where the even-numbered films are supposed to be the better ones. This one was just completely horrible. And unfortunately, it was a bad sign-off for all of the movie series because it left on such a low note. And really,
that's why they couldn't get any.
Exactly. The only reason it's significant is a major spoiler: the death of Data. That's the only reason the movie is even really significant.
It was a huge bomb, by the way, and in fact, that's what put the series entirely in.
And again, no memorable villain.
Actually,
I mean the clone of Picard as a Romulan wasn't memorable.
No, he wasn't a good performance by the actor who ever played him.
I like the visual look, and I like some of the darker elements. They were trying to go back to the First Contact. I think it's a lot better than Insurrection and better than Generations. It's the second best.
But again, it's not really that hard to be better than both of those films.
I think we can all agree. First Contact. If you want to see the two best films in the entire the series, I think are Wrath of Khan, First Contact, and you know what else I'll say is very good? I like The Voyage Home quite a bit. And I even like the Star Trek The Motion Picture, but the director.
Well, I think one of the best ones is the next one we're going to talk about.
Well, just before I go, what do you guys think of what's your favorite? Just because
I agree with you as the
I pretty much
good
agree
one.
with you.
What do you guys think is the worst, honestly?
The one Shatner directed.
I go with you as well.
I don't even bother going into the Next Generation ones because honestly, with the exception of First Contact, which was surprisingly and usually good, they're basically just attempts to blow up the TV series into
extended episodes. Really,
do you have a favorite though? What is your favorite? Would you
Wrath of Khan?
Oh, Wrath of Khan's the best one.
Yeah, and
Voyage Home is very close second.
Yeah. And then, by the way, the director's cut of Star Trek 2 is on DVD, and it's very good. So check that out as well for the actual footage.
All right, now let's get the coup de grace.
All right. Well, after many years of being in the mothballs, the series was taken out. In fact, Star Trek 6 was actually, this was what Star Trek 6 was supposed to be. The original, Harv Bennett, that was the name of the producer. They wanted to do another Star Trek film, but they didn't want the original cast, so he actually came with the concept of them going back to the lead, them in the Starfleet years.
Yeah, it was supposed to be called Starfleet Academy.
Yeah, and it was in development, and then they put it aside.
It was even going to be a TV series as well.
They came back for the Undiscovered Country, but they finally made the film, but it took a long time, and many directors were mentioned. Thankfully, I'm not a big fan of his, but actually he did a very good job with it. And J.J. Abrams, who actually went back and basically he scrapped everything, and retooled the entire series and basically took it in a fresh direction. And in fact, it ignores some of the continuity of the original series. With Captain Pike, his way he became this way is
sort of, but not really.
It reimagined it.
They reimagined it, but they do so with respect to the original continuity.
Yeah, they changed some of the rules.
It shouldn't have worked.
But it worked very well.
It should not have worked. It shouldn't have worked, but it worked brilliantly. And it really came down to the talent involved in making film, the screenwriters and J.J. Abrams, the director.
And the actors.
And the actors.
I gotta give it the credit, too. The best performer in this movie, I mean, he absolutely had my mouth, I had my mouth to the jaw going, oh my god, is this guy, did they just clone DeForest Kelley? Carl Urban as Dr. McCoy does the most uncanny impression of him.
And he's the only one who does an impersonation to DeForest Kelley, or does an impersonation of one of the original actors. Everyone else kind of brings their own thing.
But he did it in a way where I didn't feel like I was watching him.
And it still works.
He did a great job. It still
works. And
I was very impressed with the lead actor, Christopher
Pine.
Yeah. He was because I wasn't sure. The only thing I ever saw him in was Smokin' Aces, and he's completely unrecognizable. He has no muscle. He's like this racist punk rocker bounty hunter.
Nihilist assassins.
Yeah, one of the brothers.
We got to mention, I can't think of his name, Zachary, who plays
Quinto.
He is phenomenal. He's phenomenal as Spock. And I love that they actually get the original Leonard Nimoy in here, and they work him in the film absolutely
And it could have been one of those cringing moments where you could see the fans screaming blasphemy, but somehow they make that relationship between him and Ruru work. It's like
a lot. I know a lot of people were annoyed by that.
They might have been.
I wasn't. I found it refreshing.
It actually gave her something to do in the film.
Who's that again? I'm sorry.
Zoe Saldana.
Zoe Saldana as Uhura.
I thought she was, of all the people, I thought she was the
weakest. But I absolutely loved Simon Pegg as Scotty. Because he didn't even bother doing an impersonation. He just did his own thing. And
they give him most of the comedic scenes, too.
Right.
Also.
It was, oh, man.
And it was a really great way to introduce that character.
And it brought back the wonder and the spectacle of Star Trek. It brought that feeling of pulp adventure that kind of got lost in the movies in a weird kind of way. It captured the spirit of the TV show in a way the movies didn't in a weird kind of way.
Well, the budget helped quite a bit.
The budget did help quite a bit, but it is a spectacular. I mean, anyone can use special effects with CGI these days, and they knew how to use the CGI to work for the film rather.
And a great villain that was sympathetic in Eric Bana as.
I would say the weakest part of the film was the villain.
I have to.
I liked him. It should have been stronger. We should have had more.
I don't blame Eric Bana. I blame the writing. They should have given him
more
to do.
There should have been more at stake for that.
Exactly.
I liked
more like
villain.
a threat.
Other than that, the film was great.
I gotta say what else I liked about it. Like I said, I love the way they worked Leonard Nimoy into the film. The original, the older Spock. I thought that was very brilliant. And what I loved is where he meets Kirk and he gives Kirk information like Scotty invented this transport mechanism, and then he meets him. He doesn't even know how to do this. He goes, "But you know how to do this," and he knows things to do because he knows the future. And I think it's really interesting. Also,
and it's also interesting that it's like the first, most time paradox films.
They never work usually.
Right. Well, what they do is that okay, if we change course here, we're just creating a separate alternate reality. Mm-hmm. So we are now existing in this, and there's a total awareness of that.
That's how come that's
how they explain.
Well, well, what I have to say is it's really petty compared to what you guys are saying about the film. But one of the things I really also liked about the film was the art direction. I like that the bridge looked a lot brighter because there's a lot of shine into the cameras in a lot of scenes. But I also like some of the camera angles are a little unorthodox, but work for the way the movie is filmed. And I like the fact that, unlike the old Star Treks, like if the ship gets hit, everybody doesn't just fall to the side. Things get disrupted more. And I thought that was one of the things that, at least to me, a lot of reviews left out. And I liked the more redesigned of the bridge because.
But they were also very respectful to the original design. So it was clever how they incorporated the original with something new.
I thought it was
Exactly,
very.
you know.
I thought it was very respectful to the original series, but yet we're saying we're going to respect you, but we're going to take it in a little different direction.
I even like the costumes.
Yeah.
I like the
costumes are a good
I like the
example of what I was
uniforms a
talking about.
lot.
I actually gotta say, I'm really looking forward to the sequel on this one. I hope they really do rush it in there, and I hope they take their time to write a good script, because that's the problem with a lot
No,
of the
you
Star
want
Trek
them to rush
films.
it in there.
Well, I know. I hope they've been working on a script
Well,
for a while.
considering I really didn't like J.J. Abrams'
I don't.
movies before this, this is like to me one of his best work or his first good work.
I gotta say this. It's like Kevin Smith actually making a good movie. You know, I was.
You
shocked.
just
not
have to
that
go
bad.
there.
Oh, come
Hey,
on.
you just had to go there.
I had to.
It's
I had to
not-
do that.
Well,
That's
wait
just
a second.
petty.
Movies. He only made one other movie, didn't he? Unless
Mission
I'm wrong.
Impossible
Mission
3.
Impossible 3.
Mission Impossible 3, which isn't a bad film. It really isn't. It's
Crap.
better than the second one.
They all suck, to be honest.
No, the first
It's
one's
better
not
than the
that bad.
second
Mission Impossible 2 is
one.
one of the worst movies I ever
he,
saw.
you know,
It's
he was
pretty bad.
behind Cloverfield. He didn't really, he only did.
He didn't
Don't
direct
mention
that.
Cloverfield, please. I need a
Lost
aspirin
is
after
Lost
that.
is brilliant, and that's his.
Well, that's the only thing I've liked other than Star
How
Trek.
about
The movie that I
Felicity?
liked.
Come on, you love Felicity.
I never saw Felicity actually. I hate to say.
They're not missing much.
I would love to joke that I've seen it, but
Now, is there did you like, what else, is there anything else that you liked in the actual universe of the Star Trek films? I mean, because we have a little time left over.
my only comment on that is that when I was a little kid, I had the bridge, the Enterprise, a little
Really?
plastic bridge.
I remember that.
The Star Trek dolls, and I remember having, I was fascinated by the transporter. I could not figure out how the toy knew. Like, you stuck it in, you pressed like the red button, it was gone. You press the green button, the figure would suddenly appear, and I like spin that sucker for hours trying to figure out how's the button know to stop here. I press this button because it was just made of plastic.
Okay, I don't have anything as interesting as that to say. But what I will say about the Star Trek universe is, I know that for a lot of years, Leonard Nimoy resented always being known as Spock.
I am not Spock.
He wanted to be known as a serious actor. But one of the things I think now he's finally realized is that people love that character so much, and the fact that he was so good at playing the character. I mean, like you said, you love William Shatner, and but Leonard Nimoy, I guess he is to me such a, no offense again to William Shatner, but he's such a better actor to me than William Shatner
I agree, he's
ever
a great
was.
actor.
And it always amazed me, and he was always consummate. Even throughout the crappy films, that is why I've
Last
liked
thought.
him.
He was wonderful in the new Star Trek, Leonard Nimoy. I remember my favorite toy as a kid. I had a little Star Trek phaser flashlight, and I also had a Space 1999 flashlight too. But anyway,
We had a
until
Space
next week.
999 ship. You
Until
could
next
detach
week.
the front and the
Thank
back.
you.
I was a poor child. I could only afford the flashlight.
Oh, that was awesome.
That was
Love
for,
my
that's when
Star Trek,
this is
Space
for when Space
1999
1999 becomes a movie, which will never happen.
That's when I got mad at my sister because there was like this plastic leprechaun had a hat that went with this like green cupcake for St. Patrick's Day, and she used to like put that.
That fat bastard. Anyway, let's continue from last week, guys. I love that show. We liked Voyage Home, right? I thought it was a good movie. Now the next one is The Final Frontier. William Shatner actually got kind of jealous that Leonard Nimoy was able to direct two, so he came back and said, I want to direct the next one and co-write it, just like Leonard Nimoy did. And
It explains a lot.
let's just say that Leonard Nimoy was a very good director, and Shatner, ooh boy, this is definitely the worst entry in this series. It's amazing that this film wasn't called The Final Entry instead of The Final Frontier. And actually, it almost... Hi, we're back yet again, and this time we're continuing our talk from last week, which was Star Trek, the Star Trek series. We discussed Star Trek 4,
Star
Trek 4, The Voyage Home, which we all liked, but we'll continue on today with Part 5. Before I do, let me introduce my co-host to my left, Mr. Eric. Tell you something, they didn't give me a Woody.
Ageist.
Oh, sorry, she didn't give you a Woody.
This
at
is a
60
very
years
forgettable
old.
What
movie.
60-year-old
It's-
woman is getting you a Woody?
Public access, the final frontier. These are the adventures of the CineFiles, whose 5-year mission is to explore strange and unusual movies, to boldly watch and review what no one has watched before.
Cohen.
I like that new voice, by the way, you're using.
Yes.
So low and sexy. Gravelly.
Yeah, and to his left.
Matches the mustache.
I guess it's
yeah,
going up against Ricardo Montalban's
And,
voice.
well, next we got up Mr. Michael Phelps.
Edwin's going for his 70s bad cop persona.
Or this is a jazz show.
Can we just give it up to Edwin's mustache? I mean, look at that mustache.
Should I keep it or should I shave it?
That mustache.
Keep
Hold
it.
My wife hates it, so there you
That's
That
not
was
his
God.
wife.
Mm.
go. Okay, I'm not shaving. Unless I get some response from you guys. Anyway,
The Rob Reiner look is good on you.
okay, it's gone
Ooh,
tomorrow.
that's-
Fuck you! I am not Rob Ryan was because of the low box office totals in this one. This one is absolutely a mess from beginning to end. To be fair, Shatner did have some problems with special effects houses. In fact, during the summer of '89, as you know, there was Ghostbusters 2, there was Indiana Jones. ILM was busy, so he had to get some third-rate special effects house. And oh boy, it's obvious in some of the special effects in this movie. This movie stinks.
Well, it took a while for this movie to get started because I think like the first 10, 15 minutes is Kirk, Spock, and McCoy just camping and talking to each other. And it was like, okay.
Mountain climbing, the whole.
Exactly. And I felt since William